Hello and welcome to Group 1 Team 1's group presentation. This presentation was prepared by Michelle Gao, Kevin Liu, Yunsun Kim, Sharbel Dagger, and is voiced by myself, Matt Allen. We'll be analysing a segment of the Gruen transfer called The Pitch, where two marketing companies use the smoke and mirrors of their industry to prepare a persuasive argument for an ironic topic. The ironic topic for today? That Australian citizens should feel reassured that the Australian Secret Intelligence Organisation are monitoring all email traffic in Australia in the interest of public safety. This presentation will critically analyse the methods employed by the marketing gurus to make their case. Before proceeding with the team's analysis, let's watch the first pitch.
This is Jim. He works for ASIO, reading your emails. Jim's a computer. He doesn't judge what you say or what you're sent. He won't spill the beans about your mistress in Bentley or millions in Barbados, or that you dented Grandad's car, committing him for dementia because he claims he couldn't remember it. Jim doesn't tell your boss 80% of your emails are funny cat pictures, and the closest he comes to a ruffle is when people bump into his desk. No, Jim doesn't care how you live your life. But if he reads something that could take it away, he alerts real people who can do something about it. ASIO, securing Australia's future, millions of emails at a time.
Let's start with the tone. The tone starts low, foreboding, and stern. However, the narrator quickly inflects to a higher pitch, which brings the audience's mind to ease. The lighter mood that this creates also reinforces the humorous undertones that continue throughout the entirety of the pitch. By relating to the audience through humour, as we'll expand on later, the ad persuades the audience that being concerned for your own personal privacy is somewhat laughable. This ad is filmed in a single take and uses a green tint filter to give a 1980s feel, which, along with the stale office desk staging, creates a very unexciting, boring setting. The sustained slow zoom into the old computer, which serves as the initial point of salience and focal point throughout the ad, further highlights that for the most part everything is under control in the ASIO offices. After rifling through countless emails at a very fast pace, the word alert appears on the computer screen in red font to create urgency. The bold lettering is also accentuated by a slowdown of the zoom. Despite this slowdown, the focal point remains on the computer, which helps the audience remain in a calm and positive mood. In addition, the alert emphasizes that not every single email is being actioned by real people, but only the dangerous ones. The pitch ends with the ad's slogan, "Securing Australia's Future," which serves as a confident proclamation that ASIO acts solely in the interests of its people. The first pitch is targeted at the younger to middle-aged demographic, specifically 25 to 50-year-olds due to the office setting of the pitch. Preconceived myths of what older married working men and women assume intelligence agencies may be looking for, such as their millions in Barbados, their mistress or Bentley, or their funny cat pictures, are dispelled in order to relate to this particular group. Nonetheless, the relatable references to white-collar jobs and lives indicate that they are trying to relate and appeal to a wide general Australian audience. As this is pitched towards a general audience, we believe that general audience members without prior knowledge would likely to be convinced, albeit the ad does require a prior knowledge of what ASIO's role is. It is also worth considering that it's unlikely those informed in the field would be convinced, since they understand the immense complexities of national security. For the most part, due to the universal fear of intense government surveillance, we agreed it would continue to make sense outside of the Australian context, as the humour is not Australian specific. The idea of a computer scanning emails and alerting officers could also be understood by the majority in developed worlds. To irony, the pitch plays on the concept that intelligence agencies often utilize machines rather than humans to process data, and only alert officers when it scans a phrase it's pre-programmed to find. The confidence accompanying the full slogan, "Securing Australia's Future, millions of emails at a time," contains subtle irony because of firstly, how disconnected national security and emails are at face value. The irony also humorously implies that other methods may actually be more effective and more socially acceptable than email surveillance. This notion is strengthened by the use of an outdated Radio Shack computer, one whose functionality is useless relative to the computational power of most computers when the pitch was aired in 2013. Whilst the use of visual arguments was strong and appealing to a wide audience base, there was no substance or evidence provided to confirm that this was indeed how ASIO's email monitoring operated. Subsequently, the pitch predominantly relies upon humor to mask the ad's lack of credible evidence. The ad also relies upon the illogical assumption that only dangerous emails will get alerted, and by extension, that you shouldn't be worried about your privacy if you've got nothing to hide. The effectiveness of this argument is more effective in a short video than an essay format or a longer 30-minute presentation. Whilst humor and wit are able to serve as quick wins and attract an audience's attention for a short period of time, continued jokes would have a reduced effect upon the audience over a longer time frame due to the lack of proper evidence. In regard to logos, there is little convincing logic that withstands basic criticism. The notion that a computer could scan emails or detect a threat is logically sound. However, the idea that Australia will be completely safe and secure from just email scanning is an unsupported assumption. Appeals to the audience's pathos, on the other hand, are heavily used throughout the pitch. Humor is used to develop rapport with the audience and therefore establish trust between the general population and the computer that scans their personal emails. Personifying the computer with a name, Bob, also serves to appeal to the audience's empathy. To ethos, whilst in the competition, the pitch carries little credibility because it was not endorsed by ASIO. If the ad was developed by the intelligence service, however, it would carry a significant level of authority as it is backed by a government organisation. Now moving on to pitch 2.
No one noticed him buying a pressure cooker. No one noticed him picking up bags of fertiliser. He bought a soldering iron and digital timer, and no one noticed that either. And no one thought twice as he photographed a train station at peak hour. But when he sent an email to a radical organisation, ASIO noticed, and he's been on our radar ever since. The most dangerous virus that can spread through Australia's email system is terrorism. That's why ASIO scans all emails for suspicious messages. ASIO, Australia's antivirus.
In a direct contrast to the first pitch, the second pitch has a much more serious undertone and builds upon society's inherent fear of terrorism to get its message across. The pitch opens up with an unknown individual buying an assortment of items such as a pressure cooker and fertilizer and taking photographs in a crowded train station, all individually harmless acts. A stern voiceover, however, is used across the scene, which incrementally builds up tension and climaxes in the scene of the man sending the email. There is an implication that these seemingly innocuous items are being used to create a bomb or other instrument that poses a terrorist threat, with a plan being written in an email that is sent to accomplices. The scene then changes to an overhead view of urban life and introduces the concept of an email containing terrorist activities as like that of a virus that spreads throughout its city, causing fear and panic. It ends with the slogan, ASIO, Australia's antivirus, building upon the concept of an email as a virus and reveals ASIO's role in protecting the nation from terrorism by detecting these viruses through email scanning. The lighting throughout this pitch is much darker, with a sinister undertone, particularly as we reach the end, heightening the notion of uneasiness and fear. The overlay of numerous electronic blue streaks over scenes of urban life symbolizes the volume of emails sent within a city, and the potential for all of them to contain a radical support message. The speed of the blue streaks also represent the ease that terrorism can penetrate a city, and thus reinforces the importance of how our emails being scanned could keep the country safe. The cut between the purchase of items and the email scene visually strengthens the connection between emails and terrorism. The contributing voiceover, ASIO noticed, as the email is being sent, further emphasizes the speed at which ASIO can collect and read the information from these messages, thus highlighting the effectiveness that email surveillance has in keeping the nation safe. Due to the serious undertone and direction of this pitch, we believe its target audience is adults who are informed by the media and are aware of the issues surrounding terrorism within our nation. This pitch would be most effective for audience members who understand the gravity of the situation and how rapid terrorism and fear can spread within society, potentially those with first-hand experience with these issues. The pitch would be less effective when aimed towards the younger generation, as they might not see the correlation between the items being purchased and their danger, nor the concept of an email as a virus. However, we believe this pitch would remain relevant outside of an Australian context, as terrorism is a growing global threat. Due to the serious nature of this ad, which attempts to evoke fear in its audience, there is very little irony initially employed by the ad agency. However, it's interesting that the ad focuses mainly on the detection of the dangerous emails rather than the prevention strategies used to physically stop the act of terrorism. The ad agency assumes that the audience will trust that the antagonist will be dealt with effectively, because purely monitoring the threat is meaningless unless it's remediated. The use of fear as the underpinning theme for this pitch provides substance, which can be presented in a 30-minute presentation or in an essay format. However, the effectiveness of this theme would need to be further supplemented by supporting information such as facts or data in order to present a stronger and lengthier argument. For instance, statistics about how effective ASIO has been in preventing terrorist attacks in the past through email surveillance would strengthen the case. The main form of persuasive rhetoric in this pitch is the use of pathos, as fear and insecurity are used to develop emotional rapport with the audience. By playing on an individual's fear of terrorism, the ad also, to some extent, utilizes logos, as there is a logical connection between the interception of an email and preventing a terrorist attack. However, similar to the first pitch, this ad, if not endorsed by the government, carries little credibility. We'll now compare the two pitches and critique the comments made by the judges on the show. Both pitches were very effective in getting their point across to the general audience. However, if both agencies were allowed more time to argue their point, the first pitch's effectiveness would drastically reduce, as humor is not substantial evidence. Both pitches use logical assumptions in believing that the audience already understood the message that they were trying to portray. However, pitch one's visual argument did not confirm or provide evidence if this was how ASIO operated, which created doubt about the advertiser's authenticity. Pitch 2, however, portrayed the basic elements of terrorism. Because there has been much media speculation, the audience was more likely to trust the advertisement. In addition, because fear has been successful in the past, it creates a topic of discussion for people, which further allows them to expand upon the topic. When it comes down to the judges' response to the two pitches, there were favours on both sides. Some disliked the concept of using humour as a way to grab the audience's attention, whereas some believed that Australians would not respond well to the use of fear, as seen in the second pitch. And so there was a big contrast in responses from the judges. Overall, each pitch played on different emotions in order to convince the audience that email surveillance by ASIO is required for national security in Australia. The first pitch used humour to downplay the privacy concerns that the audience may have, whereas the second used fear to scare the audience into accepting the privacy implications. The voice and tone is also different, as the pitches intend to create different emotions. In the first pitch, the dramatic voiceover and the humorous undertone lighten the mood, so the audience are less concerned. However, the tone in the second pitch is more serious, as it aims to create fear, so that people accept that the government reading private correspondence would help in preventing threats such as terrorism. Analysing the pitches from the perspective of an Australian audience, it's likely that the humour would be less persuasive, and so the second would be put forward a better argument. Thank you very much